Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something today that might shake you a little, but it's the truth. If you ain't strong enough to be happy by yourself, you ain't ever going to be happy with nobody else. See, society done fooled a lot of us into thinking that we need somebody else to complete us. That we ain't whole unless somebody's holding our hand, texting us good morning, or taking us out to dinner on a Friday night. But let me ask you this, what happens when all that disappears? What happens when it's just you sitting in silence? Happiness begins from within, not from validation or companionship. This truth often gets lost in a world where likes, follows, texts, and attention have become the currency of self-worth. But happiness, the kind that doesn't shake in the face of loneliness or fall apart when someone walks away, is something deeper. It's rooted in who you are when the noise is gone, when the crowd leaves, and when there's no one left to impress. Real happiness isn't handed to you through someone else's compliments or gestures. It's built in the quiet moments when you learn how to love yourself without needing applause. People often believe that having someone next to them means they've made it, like partnership is the finish line of emotional success. But the truth is, if your joy depends on someone else showing up, then your peace can also walk out the door with you. That's why it's so important to stop and ask yourself, if no one texts me today, if no one calls, if I'm alone this weekend, can I still find a reason to smile? Happiness that starts within you is untouchable. It can't be stolen, shaken, or torn apart by disappointment. It's not something someone can gift you on your birthday or show up with in a relationship. It comes from knowing your value when no one is watching, from recognizing your growth even when nobody claps. It's found in the discipline to take care of yourself, to show up for your dreams, to speak kindly to yourself, and to find joy in your own reflection. So many people chase people to feel whole. They stay in toxic relationships just to avoid silence. They entertain drama just to fill the void. But all that running never fills the hole that only self-love can reach. When your happiness is tied to others, you're on a roller coaster of emotion. Up when they show up, down when they disappear. But when your joy is rooted in your own soul, your days become steady even in chaos. The problem is we've been taught to seek completion in someone else. We've been told that love is supposed to save us, that relationships fix loneliness, that marriage solves emptiness. But no one ever tells us how to love ourselves so deeply that we don't enter connections with desperation. Real relationships thrive when both people are full, not when one is empty hoping the other will pour in. The key is to become whole before anyone else arrives. That way, you're not looking for someone to rescue you. You're looking for someone to grow with, to share peace with, not create it. You're not auditioning for love. You're already loved by you. When you wake up and don't need someone to tell you you're beautiful to believe it, that's power. When you have a tough day and can lift yourself up with your own words, that's strength. When you can take yourself out, enjoy your own company, and feel fulfilled in the silence, that's happiness. It's not loud. It doesn't need a stage. It doesn't depend on external cheerleaders. It's quiet, but it's solid. It's unshakable because it's yours. And when you have that, no breakup, no disappointment, no absence of a partner can steal your shine. You begin to realize that being alone doesn't mean being unhappy. It means you've mastered a level of emotional independence that many never reach. You stop tolerating things that disrupt your peace just to avoid solitude. You stop settling for half love, part-time attention, and broken promises because the happiness you built for yourself is too valuable to trade for a temporary fix. And that's when everything starts to change. Not because you found someone, but because you found yourself. Loneliness is not the enemy. It's the training ground for self-love. Most people misunderstand loneliness. They run from it, drown it out with noise, or cover it up with distractions. But loneliness isn't what breaks you, it's what builds you when you let it. It's the classroom where you learn the difference between being alone and being lonely. Being alone is a physical state, but loneliness is emotional. And that emotional space often holds a mirror up to who you really are. When there's no one else around to entertain you, support you, or pour into you, you begin to realize how much or how little you've been doing that for yourself. That discomfort you feel in solitude isn't always a sign something's wrong. It's often the beginning of healing. It's your soul telling you it's time to look inward. Time to stop searching outside for what needs to be fixed inside. When you allow yourself to sit in the quiet, not feel it, not escape it, but sit with it, you begin to hear your truth. The unfiltered, raw truth that often gets silenced when you're busy trying to be everything for everyone else. In that space of solitude, you meet parts of yourself you've been ignoring. You notice the thoughts you constantly push down, the pain you haven't addressed, the dreams you've buried. And if you're brave enough, you start unpacking all of it. You start treating yourself with patience instead of criticism. You start showing up for yourself without expecting others to. You learn how to comfort your own spirit, how to speak life into yourself on the days you feel empty. Loneliness teaches you how to become your own best friend, your own motivator, your own safe place. That kind of self-love isn't something people can give you. It's something you earn through the hard moments when nobody is around to rescue you. It's forged in the fire of discomfort and silence. It's built in the hours where you're tempted to go back to what broke you just to feel less alone, but you choose not to. Every time you choose yourself in that place of solitude, your confidence grows. Your self-respect gets stronger. You begin to depend less on outside validation and more on your own inner peace. There's something powerful about a person who has sat with their own emptiness and come out stronger. They walk different. They love different. They don't settle because they know what it took to love themselves, and they won't hand that over cheaply. Loneliness can either break you or build you, but it depends on what you do with it. If you resist it, if you fear it, if you treat it like a curse, you always try to run from it. But if you embrace it, lean into it, and let it teach you, it will become your strength. You'll find out that the one person who will never leave you, never disappoint you, and never stop needing your love is you. And it's not selfish, that's survival. That's healing. Because once you know how to love yourself in the silence, you stop fearing who walks out. You stop begging for people to stay. You stop shrinking just to be accepted. And you start realizing that your peace, your heart, your spirit, all of it is worth protecting, even if that means walking alone for a while. So while the world may label loneliness as something to avoid, those who grow through it know better. They understand that it's the gym where your emotional strength is trained, the soil where your self-worth is planted, and the fire where your character is refined. Being alone doesn't mean you're unloved. It means you're being given the space to learn how to love yourself more deeply than anyone else ever could. You learn how to rely on your own presence, how to enjoy your own thoughts, and how to be enough for yourself in every season. You no longer fear Friday nights alone, unanswered messages, or empty rooms. Instead, you start to appreciate the stillness, the calm, the sacred space where transformation begins. Being alone teaches you your worth and how to protect your peace. There's something profound that happens when the noise of the world fades and you are left with your own thoughts, your own energy, and your own space. It's in that space that clarity begins to form. without the expectations of others weighing on you, without the constant tug of social obligations or relationship compromises, you start to see yourself clearly. You notice how often you used to bend to keep others comfortable. You realize the times you stayed silent to keep the peace, even when it costs you your own. When you're alone, you begin to understand what your soul actually craves, what it genuinely needs, and what it will no longer tolerate. And as that understanding grows, so does your sense of worth. You start to see how valuable your time is, how sacred your energy is, and how much you've given away to people who didn't honor it. There's a special type of confidence that comes from sitting with yourself and realizing you are enough, not because someone else told you, not because you're getting attention or validation, but because you've proven it to yourself. You've weathered storms by your own strength. You've sat in pain and survived without calling someone to fix it for you. You found comfort in your own presence. That's the type of self-worth that doesn't shake when people come or go. It's not rooted in praise or approval. It's rooted in the deep knowing that you bring value just by existing. Being alone helps you notice how many times you settled for less than you deserved just to avoid being alone in the first place. It reveals all the ways you abandon yourself trying to be enough for others. But once you've seen that, you can't go back. You can't pretend you don't know your worth. You can't keep giving all of yourself to people who only offer fragments in return. Protecting your peace becomes a priority when you realize how hard it was to earn it. And a long time shows you just how much noise you've allowed into your life, how many distractions, how many energy-draining conversations, how many unspoken expectations you tried to meet. You start to notice how heavy it all was. Then slowly, you begin choosing differently. You stop answering every call. You stop entertaining drama. You start setting boundaries, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. You no longer feel guilty for choosing yourself, for protecting your space, for saying no to what doesn't align with your peace. That shift is what being alone teaches you. It teaches you to trust yourself, to listen to your gut, to walk away from what no longer serves you, no matter how familiar it is. You begin to build a life that reflects your value instead of one that constantly tries to prove it. You find peace not in the absence of problems, but in the presence of alignment. You begin attracting different people because your energy no longer says, I need to be chosen. It says, I've already chosen me. That's the type of power solitude brings. It's not loud, but it's unshakable. And the more time you spend in that solitude, the more comfortable you become in your own skin. You're no longer rushing to fill the silence or escape it. You start to enjoy it. You start to appreciate the quiet mornings, the solo walks, the calm in your spirit. You stop questioning your worth and start defending it. You stop begging to be understood and start honoring the fact that you understand yourself. That inner peace becomes your compass. It guides your decisions, your relationships, your dreams. You no longer live for other people's approval. You live for your own growth, your own purpose, and your own joy. Because now you know your worth. And more importantly, you've learned how to protect it. Relationships should be an addition, not a solution. Too often, people enter relationships looking for something to fix them, to fill a void, to heal wounds that were never meant to be anyone else's responsibility. They treat companionship like a remedy for loneliness or emptiness, as if another person's love can erase the parts of themselves they haven't learned to accept. But the truth is, no relationship, no matter how strong, passionate, or committed, can save you from yourself. When you expect another person to complete you, you're handing over the power of your happiness to someone who was never meant to carry it. And when they fall short, as all humans do, you're left disappointed, confused, and feeling even more broken than before. That's why it's so important to build wholeness within before trying to share life with someone else. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you shouldn't expect someone else to constantly refill it for you. When you learn how to be emotionally independent, when you discover how to love yourself deeply and unconditionally, you stop seeking love from a place of need. You begin to want love, not for healing, but for growth. You want someone who adds to your joy, not someone who becomes your only source of it. That shift in perspective changes everything. You stop tolerating behavior that drains your spirit. You stop begging for attention, affection, or validation. You start setting standards that reflect the way you now treat yourself. You won't settle for half effort, broken promises, or emotional games because you've already done the work to create peace within, and you won't trade it for chaos just to say you're with someone. You understand now that love should not cost you your mental health, your dignity, or your self-respect. The right relationship enhances who you are. It doesn't erase or diminish you. When you approach love from a healthy place, you attract healthy connections. You're not impressed by surface level attention or temporary highs. You're looking for depth, for consistency, for emotional safety. You're not in a rush to be claimed. You're in a season where you're evaluating if a person deserves access to the version of you that you've worked so hard to build. You're aware of your value, and with that awareness comes discernment. Not everyone who wants you deserves you. Not everyone who shows up is equipped to stay, and that's okay. Because you're not desperate. You're not searching for someone to fix your life. You're building your life and waiting to see who fits into the piece you've created. This kind of mindset doesn't just protect you, it empowers you. It keeps you from losing yourself in the pursuit of love. It reminds you that you can walk away from anything that feels misaligned, even if it's comfortable or familiar, because you no longer measure a relationship by how it looks to others, but by how it feels to your spirit. You no longer stay just because you've invested time. You stay if it still feeds your soul, respects your boundaries, and honors your growth. When relationships are viewed as additions, you give yourself permission to be whole without them. You stop putting pressure on love to fix things it was never meant to fix. You allow it to be beautiful, messy, evolving, but never a crutch. Relationships thrive when they're built on mutual strength, not mutual dependence. Two whole people coming together not out of desperation, but out of desire to walk together, build together, and grow together. That's the kind of love that lasts. That's the kind of connection that doesn't crumble when life gets hard. Because both people know how to stand on their own, how to carry their own emotional weight, how to support each other without losing themselves in the process. You start to understand that love is not about rescuing each other, but about respecting each other's journey and contributing to it with grace, patience, and presence. When love is an addition, not a solution, it becomes a blessing, not a burden. Strength is shown in choosing solitude over toxic company. It takes real courage to walk alone rather than stay surrounded by people who drain you, belittle you, or make you feel like you have to shrink just to be accepted. Most people don't understand that kind of strength. They confuse silence with weakness, isolation with failure, and independence with arrogance. But the truth is, it's far easier to stay in a room full of people who make you feel small than it is to stand in an empty room and choose peace over chaos. The world has taught us to chase connection, to hold on to relationships at all costs, and to keep people in our lives even when we know they're no good for us. But strength, true, inner strength, is choosing to let go when staying starts to cost you your mental health, your self-respect, and your joy. It's choosing to value your well-being over familiarity even when that decision comes with discomfort, silence, and being misunderstood. There's something incredibly powerful about being able to look at a situation and say, this no longer serves me, and then walk away. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're honoring your worth. It means you understand that not all relationships are meant to last forever, and that some people were only part of your journey to teach you what not to accept. When you make peace with solitude, you take your power back. You're no longer waiting on apologies to heal. You're no longer hoping someone will change. You're no longer stuck in cycles of emotional highs and lows. Instead, you choose to sit in the stillness and let it strengthen you. You choose the discomfort of growth over the comfort of dysfunction. You recognize that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means you are creating space for something better. The challenge is that toxic company doesn't always look toxic at first. It can come disguised as love, friendship, or loyalty. It can sound like promises, apologies, or even concern. But over time, your spirit begins to feel it. The heaviness, the tension, the constant question of your worth. You feel drained instead of energized. You feel confused instead of clear. And slowly you begin to lose parts of yourself. Your voice becomes quieter. Your needs become smaller. You start tolerating things you once said you never would. That's the moment when strength becomes a necessity. That's when you have to choose yourself, even if it means walking away from everything familiar. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's sitting with your emotions, allowing yourself to cry, allowing yourself to feel the weight of what you left behind but not going back. Sometimes it's blocking that number, deleting that message, and refusing to reopen doors that God already closed. It's knowing that your peace is more valuable than someone else's presence. It's waking up in the morning and choosing to protect your energy, to speak kindly to yourself, and to not entertain what disrupts your healing. That's what strength looks like. It's built in the quiet decisions, the lonely nights, and the firm boundaries that say, I love myself too much to stay here. You begin to notice how much lighter you feel without the emotional chaos. You start to feel proud of yourself, not because someone else praised you, but because you honored your inner voice. That voice that told you you deserved better. That voice that reminded you that love shouldn't hurt. That voice that knew deep down that choosing solitude was a step forward, not backward. Realize that real strength is not about who you can hold on to. It's about what you're willing to release so that you can grow, heal, and thrive. It's about breaking generational patterns, ending cycles of emotional dependence, and building a life where your peace isn't constantly being negotiated. The more you stand in that strength, the more you realize you're not missing out on anything by walking away. In fact, you're gaining everything you were missing while you stayed. Real happiness is when you no longer seek permission to feel whole. So many people walk through life waiting for someone to tell them they're enough, waiting for someone to notice them, approve of them, validate them, or finally love them the way they deserve. They attach their joy to compliments, their self-worth to attention, and their peace to how others treat them. But there comes a time, a necessary shift, when you realize that the life you're waiting to live is already inside you, just hidden beneath years of conditioning that taught you to doubt your own value. You don't need anyone's stamp of approval to feel joy. You don't need a title, a relationship, or a cheering audience to feel fulfilled. You simply need to give yourself permission to feel complete, right where you are, with what you have, and most importantly, with who you are. It's a powerful thing to wake up and not need the world to tell you how to feel about yourself. When you stop chasing approval, you begin to attract peace. You stop explaining yourself to people who never understood you in the first place. You stop overcompensating, overgiving, and overthinking just to feel worthy of love. You realize that wholeness isn't something you earn, but something you remember. You were born enough, you were created whole, you were never broken, just buried beneath layers of fear, doubt, and expectations. The real work is in removing those layers, peeling back the need for outside validation, and learning how to see yourself through eyes of truth instead of insecurity. That's when happiness becomes real. Not a fleeting emotion, but a steady presence rooted in the fact that you are already everything you've been seeking. The world will always try to convince you that you need more to be happy. A better body, a higher income, a relationship, a bigger following. But the moment you start seeking those things to complete you, you hand over control of your happiness. You become a slave to circumstances, constantly adjusting your mood based on what you have or don't have. But when you claim your wholeness, you stop waiting for things to line up perfectly before you give yourself permission to be joyful. You stop living in the I'll be happy when mindset. You realize you can be content and driven at the same time. You can want more without feeling less. You can pursue growth from a place of abundance, not lack. That shift in perspective changes everything. It's not arrogance to know your worth. It's not prideful to recognize your value without someone else affirming it. It's wisdom. It's maturity. It's emotional freedom. You don't need to shrink so others can feel comfortable. You don't need to silence your truth to avoid judgment. You don't need to dim your light so someone else doesn't feel threatened. When you embrace your wholeness, you give others permission to do the same. Your presence becomes liberating. Your peace becomes contagious, and your life becomes less about impressing and more about aligning. You start making decisions that serve your soul, not your ego. You start loving from a place of overflow, not emptiness. You stop settling for half love, half effort, and half truth because you know what full feels like within yourself. There's nothing more powerful than a person who doesn't need applause to keep going, who doesn't need reassurance to feel secure, who doesn't need a relationship to feel worthy. That's the kind of person who walks into every room knowing they belong, not because someone invited them, but because they already claimed their space. You no longer wait for life to give you permission to feel joy. You live joyfully because you know that your happiness was never outside of you. It was always waiting on your permission, your decision, your belief that you are already enough. When you stand in that truth, nothing can shake you. Not rejection, not silence, not failure. Because you are no longer living for approval, you are living in alignment with who you truly are.